Here's a very simple one. So, this probably isn't relevant in a business setting, but in any kind of other relational setting, what I often say to my wife is, do you want to be helped, hugged, or heard?
Helped, hugged, or heard?
Right?
That's a great question.
That's it. So it might not be any of those things. It might be a combination. It might be I want to be hugged, and then I want to be heard, and then I want to be helped. But it begins aligning the intent.
Everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole, and today we're going to be discussing a conflict that many of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid. You know what it is? Conflict. But what if conflict, when approached with intention, could be a powerful tool for growth, innovation, and leadership? Doesn't that sound good? Well, author and TEDx speaker Matthew Abrams believes exactly that. He is a leadership strategist and facilitator and is going to be releasing his new book, Inviting Genius: How Good Leaders Use Conflict to Become Great, in June. Matthew's work challenges the way that we think about disagreement in our workplaces and in our relationships. And through years of guiding executives, entrepreneurs, and leadership teams, Matthew has discovered that the best leaders don't silence tension, they learn how to harness it. By creating environments where people can challenge ideas openly and honestly, they unlock deeper creativity, stronger collaboration, and better solutions. So what Matthew does is to invite us to rethink what leadership really looks like and how embracing difficult conversations can lead us to our greatest breakthroughs. Doesn't that sound good? We're about to talk about courage, communication, and how inviting a little friction into the room might just invite genius as well. Yes, let's welcome Matthew Abrams to Dreamleapers.
Hello there. Great to be with you today.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your book. It's really well written. You bring us in from the first few words, and that's good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So this idea of making friends with conflict, like most people are like, no. Yep. What is it? How do you define conflict for starters? And why is it something that we should figure out how to embrace?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that kind of perspective is just natural, normal, very human. So conflict is really where, I see things differently than you see things. And like you said, what we often do is try to make it either just kind of make it better and kind of move to the next chapter as quickly as we can, or most of the time we don't even say anything.
Right.
So that has some subtle, but over time, very significant consequences. So what I've realized in my personal life, so I've been through this journey too. Honestly, this book, Inviting Genius, was the book that I wish I had 15 years ago when I started my first company. But yeah, I think all of us really struggle with conflict, and the best teams and the best relationships, like you said, know how to harness the conflict and navigate it productively.
So one of the things that you go into detail about that is really fascinating to me is looking at the masculine and the feminine. Mm-hmm. And, I think many of us know that we have both of those qualities within us. Mm-hmm. But especially now, Matthew, when we're in this political world that's, so macho and so, I have to rule the world, and so anti-feminine and anti-everything. I mean, kind of. So in this moment, you are challenging people to say, for the macho men and women, embrace the feminine. For the, more the people who stand back and maybe are more nurturing and all that, embrace the masculine. That we need to find this balance, the yin yang, as you talk about the understanding of that symbol, this is hard to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, can you talk about it?
Of course. So, like you said, we as a society, especially here in the US, other cultures around the world are different. So, we could explore that for sure. But, US especially has this radical independence. I got this, pull myself up by the bootstraps. So, we all genders from a very young age learn, we're sponges for how do we show up in the world. We learn that these masculine traits are the things that are valued. And all of us, all genders, wind up over time silencing true elements of ourself, and as a consequence live out of integrity to who we truly are. And like you said, masculine and feminine traits do exist within all of us. And just in case folks aren't clear, I think it's important because sometimes what do you mean masculine and feminine?
Yes, please define.
Yeah, so it's really not man and woman. It's really feminine traits. So there are healthy feminine traits and there are unhealthy when they're over-indexed or unbalanced. Feminine traits, same thing with masculine. So healthy feminine traits are relational, they're inward, they're contemplative. It focuses on things like intuition, which are really, really essential for all of us, and especially for leaders. And then masculine is more about structure and action and outward. So when we over-index the feminine, we become silent and remain, on the edges and don't say what needs to be said when we're, like you articulated, over-indexing on the masculine. Well, we all know how that goes, right? It's, I'm going to win at the expense of others. And it's just really, really harmful in a business and in a personal setting.
And we learn, and I'm glad you make the point in this culture, because cultures around the world are very different, and the traditions are different, and even how people behave now. So in this American culture, the value has been placed on the masculine. The value has been placed on the problem solver, the leader who always knows the answer. And I actually think that puts so much pressure, especially on men who you're supposed to know. And how it shows up. You give some descriptions of how it shows up at work and in relationships. I want to share something that I have seen so often.
Yeah, please.
That is annoying. Like, whether it is your significant other, your boss, whoever it is, but especially in your personal life, if you feminine want to say something, and what you get rather than an ear is a solution.
That's right.
Oh, you should do this.
Have you been talking with my wife?
I didn't ask you what I should do. I just want you to hear me. And I think that sometimes when there is this natural thing, that the nurturing thing is very naturally feminine. The problem solving is very naturally masculine, but we rely on it. And you describe this in your book, especially in times of sensitivity, in times of uncertainty. You called it over indexing. We rely on it, and it shuts doors rather than opens doors.
Right. Exactly.
What do we do? How do we fix it?
The first step is awareness, right? To understand that intent and impact are very different things, right? So the intent, whatever gender, when it comes to here's a problem, let's fix it. The intent is, I want to be helpful, right? I can help you fix this. But oftentimes that's not what's needed. So we need to be curious about what is the context. And then oftentimes, what do we do about it? We just ask. We just ask. It can be that simple.
But what are we asking, Matthew? Because I think people don't even have the question in their head.
Sure. Here's a very simple one. So, this probably isn't relevant in a business setting, but in any kind of other relational setting, what I often say to my wife is, do you want to be helped, hugged, or heard?
Helped, hugged, or heard?
Right.
That's a great question.
That's it. So and it might not be any of those things. It might be a combination. It might be I want to be hugged, and then I want to be heard, and then I want to be helped.
Sure.
But it begins aligning the intent with the impact. So the intent is I want to be of service right now.
And so how do you, Matthew, translate that in a work environment? Because I think those are excellent. That's an excellent series of questions in a personal relationship, which I'm sure people tuned in are grateful for hearing that.
Yeah.
I can help stop an argument or a conflict before it happens, to just understand where a person's coming from. But in a work environment, the same thing. I mean, you're probably not going to ask your boss for a hug, but what does the hug look like work-wise?
Yeah, well, I will say the work that I'm doing in the long term, I want to create a world where we can ask our boss for a hug. I think having love centered in the workplace is going to make things so much better. But today, where are we? What often happens, and what's often at the root of conflict, is that everybody has needs, fundamental human needs. A need to be recognized, a need to be valued, a need to be heard. So when I'm facilitating conflict with my clients, it's often not about the superficial conversation. It might be about, hey, well, we have this product pipeline, and then the sales head of sales is really feeling frustrated because product pipeline is not communicating what's going on. And what really is happening is this is about respect. It's not about the product pipeline. It's not about what was said at the meeting. It's about this person who's the head of sales has a responsibility to sell the product, and they feel their need is, when you communicate proactively with me in advance, I feel respected. So anytime I'm seeing conflict within a team, my first question internally, at least, is what is the need that this person has that's not being met? That's not always evident. That's not even always evident to that person.
Sure.
So that's why this feminine trait, curiosity, right? The hyper masculine trait, knowing, the knower mindset. So this is where we invite some more of that feminine quality and say, seems like you're really frustrated. Something's really getting under your skin right now. Can we, and I'd say can we be curious about that? And then we go slow, which is so important amid conflict, because when we go fast, our brains are flooded with information, with emotion. And if it gets too flooded, it goes down into the amygdala, which is where we fight, flight, or follow. And what we need to do is slow things down and be curious. What are you really needing right now? That can be a very powerful question. And they might say, I need you to tell me this thing. And that's transactional, that's superficial. Why? Why do you need that? What's going on underneath? And then usually a couple of those why questions get to, I'm feeling disrespected. Great, we nailed it. So there's no that's the kind of process, but the underlying need is unique in every situation.
So what you just said is incredibly powerful if you unpack it, that for a person to feel comfortable enough to tell a boss, I'm feeling disrespected, that's a huge thing to get to, because there's fear involved. And if I tell you the truth, do I still have my job, right? That's, I think, something that happens for people. But even before that, you demonstrated through your demeanor and your voice how to slow down. And as you were saying, slow down, you did it. And I can imagine for people who are revved up, the whole scene is revved. And the hardest thing to do in a situation like that is to slow down. In my coaching work, which is grounded in meditation, I teach people how to breathe. And, in the moment, you can just take a deep breath wherever you are and really stop the flow. Yeah. Or the tension, the conflict. You can put a pause, you can put some space in it. What do you tell your clients when they're in that swirl? How to how to get out of it.
Well, breathing, you nailed it. Breathing is the most fundamental, powerful tool that we all have access to. And taking even one deep breath can
Yes.
move us from an amygdala response to back to the neocortex, where that's our thinking brain, right?
Yes.
So that's one, and there's a bunch of different techniques. So one thing is other people on the team who are not actively engaged in that conflict can play such a valuable resource, because they can jump in and say, wait a minute, let's slow this down right now, because they see they're not triggered in that moment, so they can slow it down. Another thing that I see is John Gottman, who created the Gottman Institute with his wife, has this great, it's so simple. When he's in an argument with his wife, he stops. She gets upset. He says, hold on 1 second. And he grabs a pen and a piece of paper and he just writes. He writes down everything that she's saying until she's complete. And then he asks, is there anything else? And that does two things. And this is just one technique, but really that's what we're trying to do, is create space, allow what needs to be said without reacting. So when he's finished, two things happen. One, she's vented everything. And just that process of venting can be very powerful. Just
without interruption.
That's right. And all those thoughts that he has, like, that's not how it happened, you do that too, those kinds of things, they come and go. So writing those things down, taking a minute to reflect, and then respond intentionally.
I love that. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers. We are going deep, thinking about the mind, and we're doing that with Matthew Abrams, who has a new book, Inviting Genius: How Good Leaders Use Conflict to Become Great. Such an awesome title. Genius. This is in your title. Just I think when we think of genius, we often think somebody else has it. I might be smart, but I'm not a genius. Genius is somewhere over there. And you are talking about inviting it into your own being, in your own life, and suggesting that it's possible for all of us to invite genius to be at the forefront. What is the definition of genius? And how did you come to the belief that this is something that we can all access?
Yeah. So the etymological root of the word genius is inborn nature. It's our God-given gift. All of us, my belief is all of us have genius within us through our socialization and through the trauma that all of us endure. Just by being a human alive in this planet, in this world, we endure trauma. And as we endure that trauma, we create these protective mechanisms to keep us safe.
Sure.
So over time, we create stories that are actually not ours. We actually identify with beliefs that are not ours. And we grow further and further away from that genius that once was inherent to who we are and actually still is. So the work around conflict is really special, because conflict is really just our bodies saying, hey, something is off. And like you said at the top of our conversation, when something is off, what do we want to do? We want to get out of that uncomfortable, messy middle as quickly as we can and reorient. But we miss something there. So when we can engage in conflict, we often can be curious to ourselves, introspective, and say, what is the story that I'm telling myself? Why am I so riled up right now? And then when we say, well, here's the story, then we can go deeper and say, what is the belief that I have that's leading me to have this story, which is leading to me taking these actions? And when we can be really curious and vulnerable within ourselves, we might come up with these beliefs that when our conscious mind is thinking about that, it sounds crazy. like a belief that we can have that guides our story and guides our motivation and actions can be something like, I'm only valuable if someone else tells me I'm valuable.
Mm.
And when we think about that, so we're actually looking at the lens, which we almost always just look through. So when we're able to look at that lens of our belief system, we can say, that's nuts. Like, that's not true. And then we can begin to reprogram our beliefs. I am inherently valuable and meaningful, and I have a lot of value to bring to this world. Then over time, our story is, I'm valuable, and therefore I don't need external validation for that. And then our actions, when someone says, this report doesn't look good, or you overcooked the salmon, whatever it is, we're not pulled off from our center, because we know we are inherently valuable. And something external can be a good conversation. I did overcook the salmon. Oh, do you like the salmon? That whatever. We can have the real conversation from a grounded place of authenticity.
What's interesting about what you just said, and in the book, this feels revolutionary in a way. Like, you're basically saying in the book, we can just put all this stuff aside. Not so easily done, but it's put aside your conditioning, the things that you learned maybe as a child, even though your parents did their best, but they taught you particular things, and not all of the things that they taught you or ways of coping and living are necessarily the best for you. Break free of all that stuff, and allow yourself to shine forth, break through it. When I read it, that's the sense I have, which is exciting and terrifying at the same time. Like, I one of the things that you talk about a lot is how you grew up, and kind of looking at that and unpacking it. And so for me, I'll give you the example. So my father was a judge, and my mother was a retired kindergarten teacher.
Wow.
And my father, as a judge, a trained lawyer, you don't ask a question unless you know the answer already. I'm like, Daddy, but it's you. Are you serious? And he taught my sisters and me that excellence was the only option. And so that's how we have lived. And we have done lots of things that are excellent. And when I didn't get an A,
that's right.
Well, so if specifically, like in the 7th grade, I think I brought home a 98 on a test, and I was so proud. I did get an A. I brought home a 98, and my father says very sternly, "Where are the other 2 points?"
Right.
And he was serious.
Yeah.
And later I came to understand. I was mad for a long time, but I came to understand, well, if you can get that many, what did you leave on the table? But that's how I grew up. So this, like, excellence is the only option. It got us to many great places, but at the same time, there's this striving for perfection. So how do you dismantle that?
Oh yeah, just simple question. How do you dismantle?
Yeah. Come on, Matthew, tell me.
Patterns and belief systems. So I want to be very clear that while this work is simple, it really is. I mean, I have a methodology in the book. You walk through these steps and you get to understand what is the belief that inspired the story, which inspired the action that you say you didn't want to do. You wish you had done it differently. What is so hard is staying in that vulnerable in between space where you, like, at some point in your life, you had this aha moment. Strive for excellence, 98 is not good enough. And that was incredibly valuable for you to help you achieve what you have achieved. And there's a shadow side to it. So what we want to do is understand and acknowledge and celebrate the beauty of that, but also understand, where's that creating pain in my life? because all of us, when we have externally adopted these beliefs that didn't come from this place of genius within us, we're out of alignment. So what do we really do when that happens is we need to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, we need to take off the lens that we see the world and we see ourselves and look at that lens. Be curious about that. Where am I feeling out of alignment in my life? Is it in my marriage? Is it with my kids? Is it with my coworkers? Is it with my boss, my direct reports, whatever? Where does it feel out of alignment? And then what really is it that's feeling off? When we can be radically curious about that, it's not always us. I also want to be clear.
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
we just have people in our lives that are toxic, and we need to, and maybe some of the stories in our life kind of like keep them in. That
Right.
would be worthwhile. Why am I doing that? A really good question, though, to answer your question is to ask yourself, what are you tolerating?
Great question.
In your life, what are you tolerating? And then ask why.
I love the why.
There's a fear. There's often a fear. Well, if I tell that person I don't want to have this relationship anymore, there's a consequence to that.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd rather, back to the unhealthy feminine in this case, we'd rather keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
But we do it at the cost of living out of alignment with our genius.
I love that. For me, I've been practicing meditation for more than 30 years. That has changed everything. Like, okay, there's this, and then there's this. And you have to find whatever it is. And it's constant work. One of the things that you just mentioned, yes, there's a methodology in your book. And also, and I love how when you set it up, you tell people, look, there are exercises in here. Don't just look at it, do it. I want you to do these exercises. I know you're not going to do it. Do it. Because that's what people often do. Oh, that looks nice. And then, they move on. Doing the work is really what you are getting at in what you just shared with me, and also through the book. And you give really great examples of people who have transformed. And so proving that it is possible to transform, and that when team leaders transform, their teams can feel safe and comfortable to transform. I mean, the one Rick Fox, the example, you have him going throughout the book. First, I thought you were talking about the actor Rick Fox, and I'm like, but I love that, like a military person who then is working in a business setting. So, that regimentation that is a requirement of the military is such a good example to go from that to how do I embrace curiosity? And I never knew that curiosity was considered feminine, but makes sense that how do I embrace curiosity when my training is this regimented kind of way of approaching things. And even to the point of describing moments where people have had tears. Men have shed, men like that, because lots of men shed tears, but men who pride themselves on keeping it all together have shed tears. How do you get people to the point where they feel it's okay to be that vulnerable, that you could cry in front of other people, including in front of other men?
Right. Yeah. So Rick Fox is such a great illustration of that, right? So he grew up a roughneck in the oil industry at Shell Oil back 30 years ago when, I think this conversation is coming more and more online around what does it require to be a great leader? Yes. And vulnerability is often one of those things that shows up time and time again. But yeah, back then it was command and control. It was have the right answer. If you have an emotion, swallow it. So there are kind of two things that catalyze this kind of transformation, because a lot of times we can make these incremental changes, right? Like, oh, I want to be better in that. And then once in a while, we'll remember to be a little bit better at that. That happens when we're changing a behavior without changing a belief. So the two ways that this happens, one is we approach and get to this place where things break, a relationship breaks, a business fails, a marriage fails, and we're just the lens that we used to see through is shattered. So we need to repair it. The thing is, we don't need to let things get so intense. So that's really what I wish I had done earlier, because I went through the same journey.
Sure.
And I didn't have the tools. I had the motivation, but I didn't have the tools. So the real tools are being curious about our thinking, and really coming back to that understanding of, what are the impacts that this way of thinking is having on my life. Carl Jung said something that is so powerful, that it was, until you make the subconscious conscious, it'll control your life, and you'll continue to call it fate.
Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers. I am talking with Matthew Abrams. We're going deep into like how the mind works and how we can have some control in that, which is really powerful. He has written a new book called Inviting Genius: How Good Leaders Use Conflict to Become Great. I love the title, because it encapsulates, what you get into as you go into the book. It doesn't read like a typical business book, Matthew.
Thank you.
I feel like you break down the walls immediately and say, okay, come into my house, and the rug is soft, the chairs are comfortable, there are no hard edges. Then we can just be here and just be and be willing to look at ourselves differently. Like this notion of the lens, like not looking through it, but looking at the lens. How you've worked with a lot of people over the years. In the beginning, when you start working with people, how do they respond to this kind of radical thinking that you are putting forth?
Well, I do not bring this radical thinking right out of the gate. Okay, welcome. It's nice to meet you. Let's get really raw and vulnerable. So, build all of this work happens in relationship. All the growth, all the evolution. If we were just on our own, we wouldn't be able to grow nearly as fast or as deep as we can in relationship. But there's one really key ingredient: trust. And not just trust, vulnerability-based trust. So it's different than, I trust you're going to pick me up at 5 because you said you're going to pick me up at 5. It's vulnerability-based trust is, hey, when you said that thing, that really hurt my feelings. Can we talk about that? So this is one of the things that I've learned over the past 20 years of doing this work, and why I started the book, and why throughout the book, I let you, the reader, see me.
Yes.
Totally see me, that I've gone through this process. I am not perfect. I am still working on this. But for you as a reader, or for someone whom I'm working with, I need to demonstrate that I'm in this with you, that I can be trustworthy. So the real reason, or the way that I create the conditions for this deep work, is by building trust. And the way that I build trust is by genuinely caring, by genuinely being curious. And at the end of the day, my calling is to be in service. So I'm not here to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm here to make the room smarter, to create the conditions for us to grow and evolve and become wiser and better at who we are, and to reclaim our genius. I mean, this has always been the calling of my life. So it really starts with building trust and taking time. And so building the trust is, I would say, the feminine side, the relational side. And then I need the masculine side. I'm going to invite you in. I'm going to push you. We're going to be at that edge of our discomfort. My job is not to keep you in the comfort. Also, my job is not to push you so hard you go into a panic response.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is integrating that feminine relational component with the masculine pushing to the edges with love and with compassion. And in that process, and it's not just me, it's all of us.
Mm-hmm.
When we can do that over and over again, we might get bumps and bruises, but we'll often end deeper, more connected, and realize what we thought was a brick wall is actually tissue paper. Most of the time I see that happen when we just slow it down and go through the process. But, and then every time we get into that conflict and it's productive, we honor the person and the task at the same time. That's what I call as productive conflict. When we get through it, guess what? Our trust has grown and we're more likely to get into it again and actually be more effective the next time.
One of the things that you just mentioned that I appreciate about the book is how much you share about yourself. And I think that's part of building trust, being able to share what's worked for you and what hasn't, and being honest and forthcoming enough to let people know you're not perfect. And here are mistakes that you've made. Here's what you've learned from them, how you have resolved whatever those things are. And you give examples in the book of these tough leaders being willing to share things that are just personal about them and inviting the team to share what's personal about, who are you? The real who are you question, and wanting to know, not just who are you as a product developer or supply chain person or, whatever your title is, but who are you and what do you care about? And you illustrate that caring and really wanting to know who people are and connecting to people on a human level ends up building that trust. So for people who don't think that that's important, because I've had a lot of clients who are like, no, they know their job. They just need to do their job. I don't need to talk to them about their personal life. They need to work. For people who think that that's an okay way of thinking,
mm-hmm.
Your style is the opposite. How do you get them to open their eyes and go, maybe a little bit of humanity in here is helpful too?
Yeah, such a great question. So after the October 7th bombings, and well, not bombings, but the terrorist attack in Israel, the local JCC asked me to come in and facilitate a conversation between the Israeli Jews and the other Jews in the JCC, because there was a lot of conflict between those two groups. And I came in, this was such a good learning for me. I came in just like, everybody needs to have a voice. Everybody needs to be heard. And when we can get heard, then we can understand how do we move forward together. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. While that was good, what was missing was the relationships. They didn't know each other. They didn't know about the kids that these people had. They didn't know about the work they did. They didn't know about their stories. And what I did, and the mistake that I made, is I tried to create the conditions for us to figure out a path forward. And what we ultimately, thankfully, got to is, let's not do that. Let's not do that right now. Let's share stories and humanize each of us. And once we see each other, and this is what I do with my clients, once we see each other, not as I am, Matthew, head of programming and development, but, I'm Matthew. I have a 5-year-old. This is where I grew up. This was a big challenge for me growing up. These are my parents, my siblings, what have you. I move from the one-dimensional to holographic. I become a living, breathing, contextual human. And when that happens, so to your question, the people who are saying like, oh, there's no place for emotions, there's no place for like, the rest of us, you're this role and this one identity as a worker here in this company, I say that that's coming at a real significant cost. People are not going to show up fully for the work when they are not first seen as a complex whole human. I have seen this over and over again in the 20 years of doing this work, working with thousands of entrepreneurs and hundreds of leadership teams. When they can start humanizing the workplace, their productivity goes up, their profit goes up, their retention goes up, the quality of work goes up, their culture improves, they become more attractive to future talent, everything improves. So this is the unhealthy masculine story of show up, be in your role, do your job, and have the right answer while you're at it.
All of the above. Matthew, I have an example that I sometimes use of me making a mistake, kind of like what you're saying. I had a man who was working for my company, and every day when he would come in, he would tell me a long story about whatever he had done the day before. Or that evening, or, and if it was a weekend, Monday, forget it. It's a long story. And he was unable to tell the story and do something else. Multitasking wasn't part of his thing. Mm-hmm. And so on a particular day, we were really busy, and he came in, oh, Miss Cole. And then he starts with the story. And I'm like, I can't listen to the story now. I need you to do this, The masculine was in full effect. I need you to do this. I need you to do it now. When you finish, we can talk, but we cannot talk now. Please just go do what I asked you to do.
Yeah.
And he went into his area and sat down and sulked the entire day and was completely unproductive. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I have made a big mistake. And it took me a minute to realize, because I was, so I came up with, not even the next day, and he was still in it. He was still in that space. Mm-hmm. Finally, after a couple of days, I realized I have to come up with a solution. And so my solution was, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes every day. When you come in, you have 5 minutes. You can tell me, we can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'll give you my full attention. I'm with you. And after 5 minutes, we have to talk about things later. Okay? And then he was happy again.
That's it. That's beautiful. That's exactly how we do it. So that take two, and oftentimes this requires a take one and take two, and sometimes take three. So just knowing that. But your need was, we got work to do. Productivity. His need was connection. I want to share a story. I want to feel connected. I want to let you into my life, what have you. So either unhealthy feminine, okay, I'm listening. Keep going. Let me get my tea. Okay, I see. I'm looking at my clock.
Hour is gone.
You got so much to do. Unhealthy feminine, unhealthy masculine is, I don't have time for this. Get to your work. So what you're able to really thoughtfully do with round two was honor the relationship and the task. And in the book, I talk about, we have a need. We need to make a request. And what you did there is you made a request that would meet your need. And you're curious, would this meet your need? You have a need for connection. You want to tell me a story. I have a need for productivity. I have a request. Can we do 5 minutes? Maybe set a timer. And I genuinely will be present, because I'm also aware I'm not really present with you.
Right.
And that's not fair to you. And I really do want to be present. I know that if I know it's going to be 5 minutes, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. That was beautiful.
It worked, and we have a long relationship. Even after he's not working with me anymore, he's still part of the team. I think if I hadn't repaired that, who knows what would have happened.
That's right.
I think also for a leader, it's maybe that was the moment of genius. Like, how do we how do we solve for this so everyone is honored? So everyone and everything is honored. And I think that we often just don't know what to do. Like, duh, I'm stuck and I just don't know what to do. Let me remind folks, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are here. We have about 5 minutes left, believe it or not. We're here talking with Matthew Abrams. He is the author of Inviting Genius. I love that word. Inviting Genius, How Good Leaders Use Conflict to Become Great. So, Matthew, as you've worked with all of these people, and so I know there are lots of stories, lots of experiences, case studies that you have observed. What do you think are the most common challenges for leaders today?
Yeah, well, specifically, I mean, I have a lens too. We all have a lens, right? But I would say it is really saying what needs to be said, when it needs to be said, to whom it needs to be said. That's really it. And that is hard. So I would say getting clear on that, because often I see leaders that aren't internally clear. They're just frustrated. And they don't take time to say, like you did, why am I so frustrated? I think you, in your situation, you kind of knew, but sometimes we don't know. So the first is, how do I get clear on what feels off internally? And then once I'm clear on that, then how do I have this conversation, which is a hard conversation, with this person or with this team in a way that, like we said, honors the relationships, really helps them feel seen and heard and validated, and honors our truth. And I'm like in awe about when we can do that, what happens in the room. It is wild. These entrenched, seemingly intractable issues that my clients have been dealing with for 2 years or more, in 20 minutes, we just really hear each other and understand each other's needs and ask for what we need and stay in the mess and figure out how to get these needs met moving forward in a way that really honors the wholeness of each individual in the room. And it's like lightning in there. You can feel that. So just trust that. Probably something I talk about in the book is second thought, first action.
Yes.
So your first thought is often like, why would you do that? And your second thought is something like, maybe you're seeing something that I'm not. And then the first action where we often derail things is being curious. Help me understand blank. So really, that's what I would say is internally get clear. Once you're clear, then how do you communicate this hard thing in a way that really sees, validates, and honors the other person, and also honors the need that you have?
I'm sure you know of I think he's called a poet, Saint Rumi. So the 4 gateways of speech is something that I learned, and I do my best to follow. Like asking yourself these 4 questions before you open your mouth and say something. Is it true? Yeah. Is it necessary? Is it timely? And is it kind? And as I have read your book, that has come up for me, like that. I feel like the tone that you offer to the reader, to leaders, is supportive in that way. It's not judgmental, it's welcoming. And tone, I think tone means everything. So even that question that you ask, why? You can ask why in so many ways.
Oh my gosh, right?
Why can be a weapon?
It's like 15 different words.
Right. It can be a weapon and it can be an invitation. And so in these couple of minutes that we have left, would you address tone?
Yeah. So there's this guy, Albert Moravian, who did research about communication. The research he did was a real wake-up call for me as a facilitator. What he determined was, after lots and lots of research, was that 93% of communication is nonverbal. Only 7% of communication is with the actual words that we say. So much of it is tone and body language, inflection. So it's such a great question. So when we're in it, right? When we're in the muck, in the mess, really being self-aware of how am I showing up? What is the tone? What is the body language that I'm communicating to this other person? And also decoupling the other person's words that are coming out of their mouth with how they're coming out of their mouth, how they're positioning themselves, especially when power dynamics are involved. I, as the leader, might say something and people will go along with it. But if I'm emotionally intelligent enough to pay attention to their body language, to their inflection, I'll be able to hear a lot more than just what's being said.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Matthew, for creating this book, bringing all of your years of experience and pouring it in for leaders. And I want to say, even for people who want to be leaders who may not be leaders yet, because there's a lot of wisdom in there. And the exercises, folks, if you read the book, promise that you'll do the exercises. They're very helpful and not easy. As you say, there's nothing easy about this, but
That's right.
The reward, I think, includes joy, which don't we all want that? Thank you so much. Congratulations on your book, and thank you for coming to speak with us here on Dreamleapers.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed listening to Matthew as much as I enjoyed talking to him. His book, again, is Inviting Genius: How Good Leaders Use Conflict to Become Great. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.